just so people wouldn't only see that top thread.
I see.
Every now and then I'll do
that. You can cut all this, Rachel.
No, keep it. And we're back. Welcome to Star Wipes. It is the discussion of our editors on Reddit. My name is Jeff Greenberg. I am Greenysmac, the lead mod over there. I'm always joyous to be joined by my friend Michael Kammes, AV Guru 1. Hello, sir.
Hello, oh Captain, my Captain. How are you today?
It is definitely a functioning day. It is a Friday. We're recording on the Friday. That's often what happens. There has been at least one decent change here, and let's bring up that banner right there. Notice it's the one with the editor. The one with the editor, and the reason we bring that up is because we have a new team member. We've got Rachel Bogan, Renegade Digital post, if I'm not mistaken. She's also an entrepreneur. She's a speaker. She and I have actually shared a stage at different times at NAB. Rachel will be editing the podcast as it is right now. And I thought, since we have editors listening to this, maybe they'd like to know how we're actually doing this episode. And one of the tools that Rachel uses is Transcriptive by Digital Anarchy. And what's great about that is it can index the words that are being said and different timestamps. Go ahead. Yeah, well, hey, guys at home, every now and again, you know what? Like every other human being, we screw shit up. There's the S-bomb, how to get it in there early. And I say it because Michael and I have talked about going back and forth as we've been doing the edit. And do we put in a tone? Do we cut to a screen? And we gave this to Rachel. She's like, next time, would you guys just say my name? I've got this great piece of software that indexes it. And God bless her. I had a moment like, really, what software? And in my head, I'm going, she's using Premiere, what? She drops in from Digital Anarchy Transcriptive. We've got to have Jim Tierney on one of these episodes. Transcriptive's amazing software, but it made me so upset, Michael, that at no point did it occur to me to run a transcript with like the word retake. Or in this case, Rachel.
We actually went back and forth on, well, maybe we should get a hotkey that generates a 1K tone, and then we can go back and take a look at the waveform and just jump. And Rachel says, just use my name. But then, of course, the mischievous side of me thinks we can just randomly say Rachel, and she's going to search for it, and there's going to be like 30 instances of Rachel where she doesn't have to do anything. And all the editors out there are probably screaming like, don't do that. Don't do that on-camera talent. Don't mess with your editor, Rachel. So we have to be careful not to use that unless we need something done.
I totally think both sides of this are great. Who is it? The guy who plays Sam Wilson keeps, saying to the editor something like, that's the one, like, use that take. Somebody will fix it. Of course, in the comments, speaking of the comments, my clock still does nothing because it's a green screen with a little bit of motion. That they notice, Michael. That they notice. Do they catch in this case the Friends reference? Hopefully.
And did they catch the one from last week, which was Revenge of the...
No, it was Return of the Jedi. I wrote it incorrectly on purpose.
Right.
And I'm just, you should know that internally, we're just trying to throw Easter eggs in here to make your life just a little bit more enjoyable.
But they'll get your flash frame because the computer dropped a frame, but they won't get a Star Wars reference.
So speaking of which, I've dropped 4 frames so far. Let's see how many more go on. In the meantime, let's bring up our divider. Hello, Rachel. And go right into our long forms. Rant. I am sick of marketing work. Sorry, I just need to vent. I'm so blanking.
We should probably say that there is some questionable language in this. I don't think we're going to be dropping those types of bombs, but just be aware there's some salty language.
Salty language. If you go to read this, I will keep it almost good enough for my kids at home. I'm sick of this industry. People unable to communicate what they want, multiply my work time by wanting something completely different. I'm sick of amateurs who have no idea about my craft telling me what's right and wrong. I have sick of having a master's degree from one of the best film colleges in this part of Europe being less relevant than the opinion of some F-tard with his nose clogged with cheap cocaine while watching Old Spice commercials on repeat. I hate my opinions relevant when it comes to my work, and I've been in the Cannes competition. Got to tell you, that's some great stuff there. I don't know how many passion-based industries, amateurs forcing them to do their jobs worse. I don't know why, because working on TV or films, it's never happened. But feedback from marketing creatives, as oxymoronic as that title is always worded rude and disrespectful, as if they thought of editors as some low-tier mechanics. I hate marketing. It's so simple and boring while being frustrated and bloated. But our film TV industry is so small, there isn't any option besides leaving the country. Sorry for this. 170 upvotes, 106 comments. Wow. Just wow. I love letting these go live. It's so good for the Reddit.
I'd rather read this than hear that somebody kicked their dog. So if this is a way someone can get this out of their system. I had a couple questions, though. I'm all for education. I went to college for film and post-production, so I'm never going to slam someone for getting structured education. But as someone else pointed out in the thread, a master's degree, that's great. I don't see a lot of people getting master's degrees in film unless they're going to be an educator, right? And it also seems odd that if marketing is such simple, why is this person doing it, right? If you have this much education, and why are you doing something that you feel is so beneath you? And perhaps it's the market where the original the OP is, but that's tough. I want to know why they're not looking elsewhere.
I got a couple pieces of deconstruction here. First one is, I don't think having a master's is a bad idea. I don't think it's just education. I'll mention a couple places. One, of course, is AFI. AFI is, I believe, just a grad school, and it's where my mentor went to film school. Who taught? But I know a lot of editors in LA who went to AFI. I'll also tell you, having taught at Columbia, Columbia's master's program is got no editorial discipline. I think it's producing, directing, and screenwriting, but they're all required to edit. And they've got, it's a pretty decent school, Columbia, along those lines.
That's where I got my degree.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. We had that in common. That's fantastic.
I get a BS. I'm a BS.
Speaking of BS, they had me teach there. The other thing that I think is really marvelous and horrible at the same time around this thread, I know we had him speak at the editors retreat a bunch of years ago. I forget Adam's last name. This is a guy who was so influential as an editor.
You've met this guy?
Oh, yeah. No, not this guy.
Oh, okay.
This guy I'm about to mention. He's at Rock, Paper, Scissors in LA. But he was, Adam was cutting pre-Super Bowl a couple commercials. This is like 6-7 years ago. And they're like, we need you to finish the commercial on the East Coast. And he got on a plane and flew to the East Coast because his sense of timing and story was so good as an editor on these multi-million-dollar commercials. I think what this person is really ranting about is that layer of banality in marketing of people who are part of the process and don't like the way that, the soup tastes unless they piss in it a little.
But isn't part of being a creative, as an editor, being able to have those, as we say all the time, soft skills, and being able to interpret, I want this more blue. Okay, I know what you mean by that. Can this be more happy? Okay, I get that. So part of that skill set is being able to take people who are unable to communicate and make that into something tangible.
I also think, 1,000% yes, but I also think a job of a really good producer in these spaces, which may have gone away. The producer just may be tired of the BS. But a really good producer protects their editor, protects their creatives from, these sort of discussions where they go, I had to make videos worse just because someone somewhere in his boring office wants to feel like he's an undiscovered film genius. I worked with a startup and the guy shot on Alexa and I can't name much more because it could get back to me, but had a pretty competent editor working on it. And I'm like, oh, this is your magnum opus. You just need to like shoot the piece and get the story right. Who cares about if it's funny or whatever? It needs to communicate. I don't blame Balthazar. Balthazar. I don't blame him at all. I think this is pretty painful. And I think that gets us to the first of the top here.
I do want to say before we jump into the responses is that there was a pretty bad movie made in the late 80s called Crazy People. It was with Daryl Hannah and Dudley Moore, where Dudley Moore plays a marketing exec with Paul Reiser. And he has a breakdown and thinks marketing should be real. And he ends up going to a house for, mentally challenged folks and ends up hiring them to write ads. And the movie isn't great, but just go through there for the ads. They're hysterical, and stay till the end because there's one for Sony.
What's the Volvo one?
They're boxy, but they're good.
Yeah.
I can't complain. That's completely what it is. And yeah, they're for the most part good, but I won't, does not ruin the others. I recommend you check it out if for nothing but the ads.
We'll mention the other one in here. I seriously, OP, do yourself a favor. Go watch Truth in Advertising. Just search Truth in Advertising on YouTube. And it's basically as if somebody went and said all the underlying things, from the fact that the client's biggest creative decision, other than picking their minivan color, is to give feedback. It is probably the emotional salve you need to keep yourself sane. It's brilliant. And if you've got, we'll put it into the comments, of course, but if you guys, when you're watching this, if you have other pieces you feel summarize this industry, please mention it, so we've got some good traction and things to talk about. And with that, Brad 12D3 or 12D3. That's a by the way, Michael, I think that's a Dungeons and Dragons reference right there. 12D3. I don't know.
Could be.
Brad, we'll find out, I'm sure, from Brad. Like someone else on Reddit said, the good news is we don't have to worry about AI stealing our jobs, because for that to work, clients would have to accurately describe what they want to the AI. We're safe. Wow. That is solid.
That is completely solid. Like I said, you need to have those skills, though, that translation skills. I think of Office Space. You actually take the drawings from the client to the engineers, because I'm a people person, damn it. What don't you understand? If you have those people skills, you're going to have a job. But it's expected. Is
fascinating. Fascinating to me is anytime somebody wants to, because we don't have the time, they want to cut out the people skills. It all goes worse. I'm about to mention an old school science fiction author, Robert Heinlein. Some of his work is controversial. Some of it is less. Stranger in a Strange Land. I'm blanking on, it's the Verhoeven film, Starship Troopers. That's Heinlein. That wasn't what Heinlein wanted on screen, but Heinlein once said in one of the guys' characters, all those things, all these social skills, whenever you remove them, it's like throwing sand into a machine. It just gums up the works and makes things worse. And I could see why in some level of marketing or anything else where people are throwing around a lot of money, you kind of want a buffer in there. Unfortunately, you've got to listen to that client who says, yeah, but can we make the color of everything green or blue after the fact? And you just go, this is a creative choice. Could you cut sooner? Could we put a laugh track in? The worst horror story I have from SimLC is I was once working on graphics and bumpers for an award show. They had teams all around the country who came up with a 3D map concept. The camera would fly into the award winner. They could not agree on anything. Color choices, font choices, design choices. It's Monday, the show is Friday. I'm sending them mock-ups. They need to make a decision. They signed off Tuesday morning, and I spent 30 hours straight in the office making these, cranking out the renders. It's a good time to mention at this point, there is a tool like Template or Pro, I think it's Template or Pro, which you can say mail merge into an After Effects graphic. Not cheap, but so amazing. I finally threw in the towel Wednesday, went home, a few hours of sleep, Finally, everything rendered and exported by Thursday morning. Worst 3 days of my life, all because no one could make a decision. I do like that last line, which I think is part of the moral here. I made a killing on overtime though. And he responds, our OP responds, marketing is the industry, the emperor's new clothes. Nobody will know what works and not. My favorite line is, it has to have a feeling somewhere between happy and sad. Wow.
And I can't defend clients who do that, because you're going to find that. I got to know if this is just more prevalent in the clients the OP is working with out in Europe, or I'm just wondering how bad it really is.
I think he's in the. I'm like 99% sure this person's in the U.S. 99% sure. And right to his quote here though. This person, John Wang Do, says, that's why you have A/B rollouts. Netflix does this with their UI stuff. I remember vividly, Michael, a story from a designer who quit Google because he said, here's my design. It is this color blue. And his engineer manager said, but is it the right color blue? And did A/B testing of his design. And he's like, screw this. You're having me because I'm a creative and you're trying to micromanage it into what you think the end user thinks is best. Man, this is what makes the marketing side of this stuff painful. Let's see what's next here. Savior complex. I like this a lot. You don't own your work nor you're creating art. You're providing service to a client. That's it. Is it frustrating as F when the clients don't know what they want? Lead you down one way to make you double back? Yep. Make them pay for time wasted. Bill them, take the check, and move on. You're not PTA making the next indie masterpiece. This ain't cans. I say this with due respect. Disconnect your ego from your work. Especially in marketing work, says 897843. Yeah, I hope that's not their PIN number.
We do also have a Zelen sighting, and it's tame. It's tame. So I think Bob was having a good day. I think in a different thread, when the one we almost had that discussion about hobbies, he said that he's got to stop posting after drinking, which I think is a problem everybody's got to discover on the internet at some point. Here it is, Zellum himself. Welcome to show business, my friend. Everyone's a creative genius. The only people in this forum that are not tortured the exact way you're tortured are the ones who are unemployed. We all go through the same thing, Bob. We either need a Zelen graphic, or if we planned enough stuff in advance, we ought to call him and have him record that for us. I can get on that.
You can get on that. I like that. All right.
I can get on that.
Let's do a couple more, then we'll move to our next thread here. I had a junior marketing and branding producer request to be sent to be locked cut of our final episode for approval. I responded, you can have the feedback at the fine cut stage along with legal and all other departments. Sign off on the lock cut is for the executive producers and network exclusively. And Balthazar, our OP. Oh God, the audacity is real. I want to do one thing before we move on from this, if that's okay. I want to just take a second and sort this by most controversial. Not everybody on Reddit knows that they can do this sort of stuff. I'm going to go ahead here. I don't know that I can. There we go. Top. We're in old Reddit. Let's take it by controversial. Let's see what's at the top then. This will be interesting.
Get comfortable.
Oh, GH4 Goblin. This one definitely is, Michael, controversial. All right. I'm going to be the bad guy, play devil's advocate. I get it. It sucks. I'm sorry you have to deal with it. More likely your frustrations are valid. And now I'm reading all the bold stuff. Your master's degree doesn't make you right. It makes you just more likely to think you're right. I got to tell you, ouch. But, I can see that sort of perspective a little.
Well, I mean, you can't use it as a blanket statement. That's like saying, people who have master's degrees in medicine or something, you don't know more than I do. You just think you do. Well, no, you've got that education. So it's not a blanket statement, but I kind of see where they're going.
I see the perspectives, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I always think I make the best work ever, but there hasn't been a project in 10 years where a piece of criticism from anyone less trained than me hasn't made my product better. Yeah, I absolutely think that the right feedback is always valuable, that there's something off that wall. I lost a 10K internal Volkswagen contest to people using an iPhone making a donkey video that's literally dog blank compared to mine. It's almost not funny. I feel this, and I also get very, very, very angry around the idea of creatives using contests as a way to farm out ideas when they have none.
Doritos? What?
Doritos, yeah.
Super Bowl?
The hard truth, even though my video is factually better as an advertisement, I was so busy knowing that I'm the best, I refused to listen to anyone at all. I don't know, poor GH4 Goblin. Let's get his summary line in here. All this said, trust me, you're probably dealing with an actual idiot who sometimes is suggesting stupid crap. It's tough, I'm sorry. I've got similar issues nowadays. If I'm being honest, a lot of this diatribe was me talking to myself as I transition out of my current job into a new stage. I took this moment maybe to talk to myself a bit through you, but maybe there's a lot of truth in there for you to use too. Hope it doesn't come off as rude. And Balthazar says, hey, thanks for the reply. You're right about many things. I have to tell you, as a moderator, I love some level of controversy. I love when people treat each other as professionals across the board. Long form number 2, dealing with subject matter you don't believe in. Would love some advice. I'm editing and doing color work commercially for the last 7 years. I've had great success, luckily, and incredible fortunate to do this full time. I've always wanted to dive into narrative or doc work. I was recently approached to cut a doc, had a call with the director. I completely disagree with it on a personal and moral level. Looked deeper into it, and producers have worked on some pretty gnarly right-wing style docs in the past. Took a lot of steam out of my excitement. The pay was great, and they seemed super interested in me, my work, and how I could help. My 7 years, I've never ran into this. How would you dealt with this? How would you handle it? Love some insight. Thanks, everyone. Before we get to this thread, I want you and I to do this, because I think you and I differ a little on this one.
I think we have flexible morals. That also corresponds to how much your morals worth, right? If it's a political thing, maybe you'll do something that's only slightly left or right of center, right? Maybe you won't do something for another religious body because that goes against your religious convictions. So I think it depends on if your morals are bendable by money. And I believe they are. And I think if you have FU money, if you don't know what FU money is, look up the John Goodman clip on it. If you have FU money, you can do whatever you want. If you're just starting out, you're supporting a family, it's in a recession, and you need to put food on the table and pay your rent, then you're going to have to bite your tongue and potentially take some things that you don't feel are best. And I don't think there's a way around that until you get to that FU money stage.
I think it's even less than FU money, and I think the flexible molars or flexible morals there, I think it's deeper than that. I think in the best economy, with some level of FU money or just some 6-month money, you go, I don't want to do it. The further you are down the food chain, the more that you feel you could get some creative benefit at some level, the more you need to put food on the table for your family, the more likely you are to say yes. And there's also that really gray area of, I'm going to just break in and look at how much money and I'll kill myself, knowing that I'll have regrets. And I'm sure Zelen in here throws in a whole bunch of booze will help, with those regrets. I also think at some level, you can go get therapy for those regrets. It just is where you're living at this given moment on this planet for yourself. I wish that it wasn't connected to money, because I think at every level, if you are diametrically opposed to a political or a religious or whatever reason, you shouldn't take the work, because you're going to end up hating the work and hating the people that you're working with. And I think those are harder things to, it'll come out. It'll come out in some way, shape, or form.
I think this also goes hand in hand with the kind of hustle culture we have here in the States, and making money is the most important thing, which obviously can skew whether you take a job or not, because I have to always be working. I have to, boast about how much I don't sleep, which is just another conversation to have. But the concept of I need to make money regardless, I think is probably tainting this discussion as well.
Maybe we need that, you and I have begun to discuss the idea of another segment in here. Maybe we need to have a controversial subject, whether it's sleep, whether it's capitalism here. There was one more we were talking about, the jump cut mentality, if you will, the high, what is professional or not. I think these are all interesting conversations. Let's come back to the thread.
Jeff, if you were in this situation, what are the questions that you would ask yourself? Like, would it be, this violates what I teach my kids, or this goes against the religion I follow? What, just for you, what are the lines in the sand?
The true line in the sand, and I have a friend who was doing some work for what's the Lincoln Project. I have a buddy who's doing some work for the Lincoln Project, and we were discussing this exact situation. And I mean, that's at the top forefront, all right? The answer for me is pretty much, today, if there's the right amount of zeros on that check, I'm gonna sleep great, brother. I'm gonna sleep great. I'll put a kid in school. I'll build the back off the deck of the house, all that stuff. My morals aren't flexible. I don't mean to be that, but that dead capitalist sort of concept. But if it made my life freer, absolutely. As far as,
well, I think it is being flexible.
It is being flexible.
What you're saying is more zeros.
But I'm going to put that line. Growing up in a very Jewish background environment, man, there are some things where I'm just like, no, man, it's off the plate. I'm walking. You start using fascism and final solution sort of things. I'm done, man. And there are a lot of tripwires like that. Yeah, that's probably my personal line in the sand, is when it talks about death of others, those sort of things. I think that when we get into these spaces where the content loses 100% compassion of the other side, that's where I begin to really have problems. If that makes it a little bit easier. And I think this is, again, we'd love the feedback. I think we ought to see if we should have an opinion section that you can totally skip, because we put all those goddamn chapter markers in. Let's look at the thread. Zex it all. Don't take the work. I know it's easier said than done, but the interest on regret is higher than the interest on lost wages. Right next to it. And this is so beautiful of a username. Bye-bye civil rights. Don't do it. I recently finished on something extremely triggering. It's the worst thing I could have possibly done for my mental and emotional health. If you're being approached, you're probably talented enough to turn it down. Love that.
You know what I think is also interesting is, I know you've been freelance for quite a while, but I've worked for corporations, not massive ones, because I just can't do that anymore. And it's interesting where you see how the dollar signs will also change how the corporation will deal with, let's say, a religious body, right? A large church, mega church that has a lot of money, even though it may be diametrically opposed to the beliefs of the owner, the owner still needs to pay all the employees. And so that obviously throws a wrench into it. And I've worked for companies that have worked for several religious entities, and I'll just leave it at that. And it's been a topic of discussion. I don't want to work on this. Can someone else at the company work on that?
The struggle, of course, is that if it gets lauded, if it gets recognized, and you get recognized, suddenly now that next group that's competing or with them are going to go, hey, here's some more money to do some stuff that you find repugnant. And on that note, Max Headroom, God, I love Max Headroom. Take the job and hide some barely visible, gonna do it, Michael, some barely visible dicks all throughout the documentary. Sloth for a day, can't believe I had to scroll this far for a sensible response. Also bury farts in the room tone and work a solid 2.5 hour day. And, sorry about that. somebody in there has take the job quiet quick after cashing the check. The fact that we now know what the words quiet quit mean is definitely marketing. It's definitely marketing, Michael. It's definitely people trying to tell us that if you really hate something, you just do slowly don't do the work, man.
That goes against, I don't want to say how I was raised, but how I believe you should work. So
you should loud quit. Loud quit.
You should make up your mind, make the move.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's like being in a bad relationship, right? I think when we're young, we're in relationships too long before we realize you just got to rip the Band-Aid off.
I'm going to go through a couple more. Reddit burner 5225. Do it. Maybe you'll see something from another perspective. Kind of funny how everyone's just said, don't do it. Do the job, donate some portion to charity. I like that.
I like that too. Yeah.
You know, that's, I'm going to look. I feel like there is a Zellin in here. I feel like there's no Zellin in here. Bob, what were you doing? Hey, Michael, I'm going to ask you to do something controversial. Could you channel your inner Zellin to what he would say at something like this? Unless you're morally opposed.
Suck it up, Buttercup. This is what you have to do if you're a professional, is work with people and things you don't agree with. But at the end of the day, that's how America works, and you need to do this.
Wow, that's good. That's not bad.
Good?
I think it would be like, yeah, you're just not going to make it in this industry because you're not willing to work hard enough. And I'm happy to take the money from the people across the aisle, and I'll buy me and my wife a great dinner and drink until much too late, and then install their QNAP as well.
See? I like the blatant self-promotion in there as well.
I think that we should, if anybody sees this, you can vote which one does a better channeling of inner Zellin. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I want to add into this. You know, at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself about this. And if this is going to leave a black mark on your soul, don't do the work. If you can live with yourself and, you know, it feeds your kids, I am all for feeding your children, feeding your family. I think that always comes first, you know, from a really practical, hardworking sort of mentality. And here we are back with Shortcuts, where we go through a bunch of threads and do a quick weigh-in opinion. And we're going to start here. PayPal's fees as a free fee. I'm going to still go, Mike. No way. PayPal's fees as a freelancer. Basically, should I try and do friends and family to cheat taxes and stuff as a way of using payment through PayPal? My answer is no. You do everything above board because sooner or later it catches up to you.
Agreed. Also, corporations will charge extra if you use a credit card, right? A lot of them will say, look, you pay cash, it's this price, you pay with plastic, it's this. So give the client that difference. Say, look, it's $1,000 if it's cash, it's $1,050 or whatever it is 3%. If you do PayPal. Keep it above board. Yeah.
Absolutely. That brings us to benchmark metrics. From scrubbing performance, I have a system that behaves great when scrubbing media on internal or external drives, but poorly when it's on a network drive. The network drive is a quantum StorNext. I access through fiber optic, and all the benchmarks performs way better, but imported media from this drive lags. Few images dragging the playhead, even the slowest internal drive outperforms it. Is there a test I could do? You know, he by the way, had the problem in Premiere Resolve on 2 machines. And there's some disk benchmarks in here, and I kind of don't care about the disk benchmarks. Now, I first thought with this, Michael, that this StorNext was maybe available to everybody, like their whole local network had it there, and it wouldn't be prioritizing terribly well traffic. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I have to make some assumptions. It's obviously StorNext by Quantum, which is their file system. And if it's over fiber, that means that their direct connection to the storage is through a switcher direct, and it's fiber, which means it's not getting network traffic like you would Ethernet. Yes, if you want to get really pedantic, metadata is transmitted over Ethernet is one way to do it, but that's usually not the issue. Go ahead.
But, you know, we don't know that somebody stupidly didn't plug it directly into an extra router or switch, and it's getting all that extra traffic. Like that's the hard part with troubleshooting something like this is that unless you're on premises or unless somebody's sending you a network map, like we don't really know what's really breaking this, do we?
No, but what we are seeing is if we take a look at the benchmarks, all of them register that this is pulling data over 10 gig. Excuse me, not 10 gig, 10 gig fiber, because we're getting, 630 megabytes write, 655 read. That makes complete sense as this would be going over fiber or 10 gig Ethernet, depending on your setup. So I'm thinking it's a config issue, to be completely honest with you, because you should be having great performance. Now, that being said, if you've got like an M2 NVE local drive, that's going to perform really well too. But of course, you don't get the shared ability. But if you're getting that much delay, that tells me that there's some configuration in the StoreNext that just isn't being done correctly.
Absolutely. So that would be the next place. And hopefully, I would love to hear if our OP here, Chew, i.e. web, or Chew, I don't know. I hope.
Does this look like a Windows? Because the Blackmagic speed test, I believe that's Windows and Mac. Can you tell if this is a Mac screen grab or a PC screen grab? The reason I mention it is there are several. There are many more network disk access type applications on Windows than there are Mac, and so you can really dig down into it with basic GUIs on Windows than Mac.
I can't tell. I can't tell. Okay. I'm looking hard. I can't tell. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. It does. Good. Yeah. So Chewy Web, let us know. Let us know if.
Also, I also see that the OP says, I guess there's a problem with the StoreNext file system, but I'm having trouble communicating it to the support team. Normally, you don't buy direct from Quantum unless you're a big corporate entity. You're going through a reseller. Contact the reseller because they're supposed to be the first line of defense anyway.
Or it was bought used, or that person's long gone who bought it. But we would love to see an update. We would love to see an update. Automating script sync prep. I'm working on a personal project and have to do all the AA work myself. I have 700 clips of interviews with corresponding transcripts. Okay. Is there a batch way to do this with script sync? So before we go further, I just want to take a moment. If you've never used Avid Script Sync allows you to load a script, load a take or an interview, and say, use phonetic recognition to line it up. And the beautiful part about that is you now know that you have the actual transcript. In the case of an interview, you have the interview. And this isn't using AI recognition. You're able to search for a particular word, click, and be more or less on that spot in the interview. And this person has 700 interviews to have to do this with. And Michael, I'm going to put words in your mouth, and you can stop me from this, of course. You said, I don't know why this one's there. This one's like just, and I'm like, no, this is absolutely a great tool, but the wrong tool for the problem. And it's, by the way, it's Mamamoni, whose name we've seen before. The tool, by the way, I would use here is either Descript or Reduct.video, both of which are AI tools, but you can sit back and give it all of those pieces and do like mass searching across them. What you won't get is the ability to have it queue up into Avid, although Descript, you can select different interviews, cut and paste into another document, and have it spit out an XML and reconnect to your local media. It's pretty impressive. Reduct does some deep analysis here, but I feel this is 100% good tool, but not the right tool.
Agreed.
I know, terribly not exciting as a shortcut, but I think it's important. This one also, I think, got some pushback from you, my friend. Anyone know how to turn this off? It's always in the wrong goddamn spot.
Why don't you describe what that is? Because I first glanced at it and I thought it was something else.
Absolutely. That bar, and I don't know the name, and I should I'm not just an Avid certified instructor, Michael, I'm a master instructor. I teach some of the train the trainer classes, plugging myself there. I do the same for Blackmagic, Premiere as well. I've written books, blah, blah, blah. What that function is that is the scroll bar. When you have lots of metadata horizontally, the function of that bar is say, everything on the left of this bar should stay visible. And it's ideal, like if you were ever on a spreadsheet and you just had loads of data, and as you scroll across the spreadsheet, you need that title column, that main column to stay visible so you know what the information is. That's what Avid's doing here. And somebody in the thread says if you drag it all the way to the left, it stops doing its functionality. I'm not 100% sure of that, Michael. And the other part about not being 100% sure is if you drag it all the way over, I don't know how you get it back.
You know more than I do, Avid master trainer.
Yeah.
AMT?
I would assume that if you just switch Command T, size of the columns to fix, that might fix it. But it is absolutely, when you need that bar, it's a godsend. When it's in the wrong spot, it's painful as can be. I've heard several people who are still like the 2018.12, right? The old Avid interface. And so this may be still some growing pains with the new UI. I have seen some quirks with that, but I can't say it for sure. Soapbox moment. I know that when a company, Apple with Final Cut 10, it's now just Final Cut, when Adobe putting in the new project starting kit and export, they're never going to abandon these things. Avid, they're not going to abandon their new interface. And the way I approach all of them is these are designed by smart people with good intentions. Learn how it works first before you hate it. Learn it, get to really know it, and then hate it for what it is. Don't hate it just because it's new. And that's an obscure reference by somebody who says about racism, don't hate somebody because of the color of skin. Get to know them who they are personally and hate them for that.
An equal opportunity hater, but an educated one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bonus points if anybody knows who that is. I'm not as thrilled with him as I was in my wayward youth. Okay. Thoughts about using a pen name for work? Really?
Yeah, because I made the mistake of sort of doing that. As soon as I got out of college, I started an LLC. LucidSound.com for anyone of you, which I then sold the domain like 20 years later for a hefty profit. So that was cool. But what it dawned on me is everyone's going to know that company name, not my name. And at that time, getting a reputation to cut audio and mix and whatnot, it was better to have your name out there than either a pen name or a company name. So I'm a big fan of put your name out there.
Speaking of putting your name out there, is 5 Things, is that edit done? Did you record?
Is the edit done on 5 Things?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. I just was mentioning it because 5 Things, I got to get another thread in there for it. Editors, creative editing techniques and styles from YouTube and TikTokers. By Cut Monster, I primarily watch scripted reality content. I'm curious to learn about editing techniques and styles used for content on YouTube and TikTok. Can anyone comment if these platforms' editors have a unique style? Are there well-known established editors I should check out who primarily cut content for YouTube and TikTok? Jump Cuts. Jump Cut City.
Jump cuts, additional transitions instead of just J cuts, L cuts, cross dissolves, which we'll address later. You're also going to see a lot more, I think, on-screen graphics and cutaways. Not just ESPN where we're going to have a sidebar with info, but let me throw up a quick graphic of a character in pop culture. I think you're going to see a lot more. I don't want to call it ADHD because that's just missing ADHD, but there are definitely a lot of little flourishes done that you may not see in broadcast or cable or cinematic projects.
There was a piece, it was on Vimeo, with a lot of whip transitions, and it's something Watchtowers of Turkey. There it is, something like that. And that's something where I said, wow, that's a really nice technique. But I think that a lot of social media is essentially a Rubik's Cube or an infinite number of monkeys typing at a typewriter until something hits. And the things that work and make it easier, that's what we're going to get, is more stuff from the monkeys.
You're right. And I definitely don't want to get off on a rant, but before we had social media, you always had this kind of benchmark of quasi quality for cable broadcast and whatnot. And people adhered to the same traditional rules. And, we got to MTV, but it was still polished, right? Now that we're in an age where anyone can publish something, you get, as you mentioned, a lot of monkeys, and some of those folks do a good job, some don't. So the problem is trying to discern a style. Is you have to comb through a lot of things which aren't style. It's someone learning or just not caring, versus someone who knows timing and knows how things work. So you kind of got to muddle through the mess of things to find what works.
I think this would be a great opinion section for Star Wars. I do. Let's go to another one. Mr. Five Things. Does Premiere Productions actually work for remote editing with multiple editors?
Yes, it works. I think what happens is many folks conflate the team projects, which Adobe has, and Adobe Productions. Team projects is meant for when editors are not in the same building and they have their own repositories of media, and each person is using their own copy of the project and media, and then that project is then shuttled back and forth via team projects, and it's handling all the version control and whatnot. Then you have Productions, which is when everyone is accessing the same media at one location. So people can be all around the world, but they're accessing the same media, whether it's on a SAN or NAS, or whether it's in the cloud using something like LucidLink. They both work. They both work for their particular use case. So
I'm going to say 3 things, not 5 things here. Maybe 4. 1, this guy commenting here in the thread, AV Guru 1, seems to have a really good bead on it. And that, of course, is you. 2, yes. You've got a 5 things, and I believe your next 5 things is specifically around this. 3, miseducation. I wonder if somebody like Michael is hireable to solve this for you. And 4, and kind of the one that is sort of my biggest picture, whether it's here at Reddit or at our edit or anywhere else, is this is something that you just kind of, like, I have real sharp opinions that you shouldn't just kind of figure this out on your own, move everybody over to it. You want to sit back and for an episodic commercial place, which is what this, and they're starting work on a narrative feature. Man, this is why you bring in people to solve these problems for you. And I wouldn't get it off of a forum. The forum might take me to somebody who knows what they're doing, but I sure as hell am not going to take something off of Reddit or whatever and use it like that without just a crap ton of testing and making sure I know what I'm doing.
You'll do a camera test before a shoot. Why don't you do a post test before the shoot?
My line is take your media and shepherd it all the way through distribution when you're testing a workflow. I'm probably pretty sure you're in the same boat there. Our last short form here, our last shortcut. Export settings for the web. Hi, everyone, says Calm Hurricane. I'm an intermediate filmmaker, and I've got a question about exporting for web, such as YouTube to post music, video, documentary, etc. My kit is DSLR, camera. After filming, I transcode to DNX or ProRes LT. How can deliver a good quality export that will translate being played back online? It doesn't goddamn matter because they're going to chew it up anyway.
True. This is probably one of the next to how much should I charge? The how do I export for the web is one of the biggest questions that gets asked. To kind of level set, you're never going to improve the quality of what you shot, right? So if you shot on an iPhone, you shot on an Android, you shot on a Canon 600D, you're just by transcoding it to a better codec, you're not improving quality. So let's just get.
Oh, that came up early. Sorry about that. Keep going. I don't care.
Keep going? Okay. So just be aware of that. Just flipping to a 10-bit codec isn't going to make it look any better. What a lot of people don't realize is that sites like YouTube can take high-res files. So if you have ProRes or DNX or Cineform, you can upload that, and YouTube will then crunch that down. YouTube will always crunch whatever you upload. I'm a big fan of doing that because then I'm not compressing it into a 264, then uploading it to YouTube and having YouTube compress it again. Some other things you can do, add some noise, some digital noise to the video. That way, YouTube, when it looks at the file, will interpret that noise as, oh, those are pixels I shouldn't change, and it can reduce how much compression is done. There's also some plugins. I think Boris has one that can help prevent banding. You get banding in the gradients, especially with 8-bit
Resolve
files.
Studio has got a really nice anti-banding plugin.
Mm-hmm.
The real end of the day with this, though, is always the same thing. Whatever you're giving them online, they're going to chew up, and you want to give one that's as close or higher than what you have local. And what you're giving them, whether it's ProRes or an H.264, has more to do with, are you damaging it on your end and handing a damaged one, and whether the timing works for how long it takes to build it and how long it takes to upload. I think that I know for a fact that many of the presets of our post-production tools are built as, what did YouTube say? Let's just double it. And I think, Michael, you and I are on the same page of the, hey, if you got the pipe, give them bandwidth. Give them a giant file. Give them ProRes, and go down based on, how much you're willing to wait. That's our export settings for the web. And I think that takes us out so we can get into FMK, which I brought up there as a graphic because I clearly shouldn't be live switching, or at least not live switching sober. Okay, we're back for FMK, a phrase you should Google in your own home with privacy mode on. Today's FMK.
It's brought to you by user 84002.
Nice. I should have included that. Hey, J-cut, L-cut, or dissolve FMK. I believe you've set the standard that we've got to go through them all. You go ahead.
Okay, this is tough. So what I want to do for F is an L-cut. Why F and L-cut? Because it lasts longer. Okay? Kill, I want to do a J-cut because the audio comes too quickly, right? And no one wants to do things too quickly. Marry is going to be dissolve because that you can use in almost any situation. If you can't solve it, dissolve it.
Damn, you stole that line. I was going to use that. So I'm going to disagree with you, though.
Okay.
And this is, a real editing, nerd moment. The L-cut, where your audio bleeds into the next shot, for me is what and I'm doing them out of order. I'm going to kill that. I'm effing absolutely the J-cut. The J-cut is my bread and butter. It is how I hide all of those transitions. Unless, of course, it's impossible to hide. And that's where that dissolve comes in. And that's where that line you just used, if you can't solve it, dissolve it.
I thought I put a lot of thought into this, but I went blue and you actually took it in the editor direction. So thank you for recentering things.
Well,
so to speak.
This is our editors, FMK is about as blue as we want it to go there along those lines.
Well, as a bonus, jump cut.
Oh,
what would jump cut be?
Oh, jump cut.
If you had to assign it, just F, M, or K, a jump cut, what would a jump cut be?
Because just it's FMK. Is that like a side piece? Is that like the other? Is that like the other woman? Or the other? Is that
person?
The other person? That's where I would end up with the jump cut today. If it was a decade ago, of course, jump cut is the one I'd kill. Because I'm just.
I'd F it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd F it. Yeah.
Right. Somewhere we need that as a soundbite. Well, Michael, this is the shortest one we've done so far. This is episode 4, the one with an editor. Where can everybody find you? Is there something you've got going on that's cool?
A couple different places. I'm on the socials at Michael Kammes, not at AV Guru, because I can't change that on Reddit. If I'm on Reddit, it'll be AV Guru 1. You can also check me out at michaelkammes.com and 5thingsseries.com.
Outstanding. I am Jeff Greenberg. I am Greenysmac, the lead mod there. I am Film Geek on all your favorite social networks, but if you do Jeff Greenberg in video, you find me pretty easily. I'm Jay Greenberg Consulting, where I educate and teach people around post-production. As always, my friend, it is a joy. This is something fun, and we're clearly going to at least be doing it. I think we've got about 2 more weeks before we got to make this into a podcast, huh, buddy?
Oh, we're pulling the trigger that quickly? Whew. Okay.
Whole thing is the ship before you're ready.
Excellent.
Yeah, we didn't even bring
I'm
up
down.
the new Apple tools that you're going to ignore that fit in your pocket and make phone calls, I guess.
Is that an Android dig? Because I use an Android.
I don't know what that is. I just,
Okay.
Interestingly, I've seen so much interesting feedback. But again, maybe we need an opinion segment, or maybe we don't. Again, leave us info in the feedback. Please tell your friends. We're beginning to get the word out about this. I could put up the stupid like, subscribe thing, but why would we bother? You know how the internet works at this point. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.